Imagine finding a game where we can have fun and, at the same time, live in different times and societies. That game exists and it's Humankind, a 4X turn-based strategy game. But what is this very different genre all about? 4X is a subgenre of strategy with a very explanatory meaning, that is, the 4X are explore, expander, extract and exterminate. For those who are not familiar with this name, you have probably heard of some games of the style, such as Civilization and Endless Space. Typically, games of this genre tend to be extensive and packed with content, as well as being complex and difficult to master. However, they tend to be rewarding and great games to get your head around. Humankind is all that and more. For those who already know the style of the game, it will not have much difficulty in progressing. For beginners, it will take patience to adapt to the pace and style of gameplay. The game does not let the beginner down, having several video tutorials, separated by mechanics and functions within the game and manuals that are a great way to understand the whole concept and become more familiar with the elements present in it. Amplitude Studios managed to do a very beautiful job to look at. Civilization is a reference and there is no way to detach from it. However, Humankind manages to be even more complete and complex, making the experience even more satisfying. It is worth mentioning that, in this case, the complexity that the game brings is due to the amount of things to do and learn, which does not mean that the game is boring and, much less, monotonous. How does the game work? Humankind has a campaign where we can write the history of civilizations our own way. Have you ever thought about what it would be like if the Egyptians were in power until today, what the world would be like? What if it was the Greeks or the Persians? You can make it happen. Initially we will select the difficulty of the game. This is a very important part that will define how the game will help you during gameplay. These are options for those who have never played a game in this style, full tutorials, for those who have already played, advanced tutorials, and the option for those who have played the game before, no tutorial. The next step is to create our character, along with choosing his personality and flag. We have a good variety of character customization options. It wasn't even necessary, but it's very welcome, which contributes to a sense of power and mastery of our actions. The choice of personality is the most important point of this stage. We can define our character in several ways, such as vindictive, passionate, cruel, explosive, etc. This will impact the way we handle conflicts during our battles, diplomacy, and decision-making. The unavailable option is only unlocked via DLC. All set and we can start. The game brings a very interesting novelty that sets it apart from other inspirations. Every era that we go through, we have a lively historical context, with narration and everything, where the narrator presents that period and tells a little about the functioning of that society. The first type of society we will have is a nomadic tribe from the Neolithic period, after an introduction to the Paleolithic period, chipped Stone Age, presenting man dominating nature, learning to use fire to his advantage and no longer fearing it. All this with a very well-produced animation and with a very humorous narrator. It's really nice when we have these animations, as it gives a very rewarding feeling of progress. To understand the logic of the map and game mechanics, it is interesting to think of it as a board game. We started with a small group of people and we need to evolve enough to attract more people to our group and evolve our society. Exploring and collecting food will be the main mission during this period. As we evolve, we have to worry about the economy, culture, creed, religion and faith, forms of regulation, our influence, science, military and political issues in general and even the well-being of the people in our cities. Because it is a turn-based strategy, this is where the board game comes in. Just as we have to wait for the other player's turn to play on a board, here it works the same way, both with another player and with the AI, artificial intelligence, of the game. Initially we only have 4 moves until we end our turn and each finalization counts 1 turn. Turns can represent, in a way, our progress in the game, since when we are at turn 300, we have a much more evolved society with different cultures. Map. The map is your board. We have several places to go and explore. We can find materials, food, secrets, sanctuaries, points of diverse interests and privileged places, wonders of nature. It's always good to know the places where you step to find out if it's worth creating your community in certain places. Some points can give us advantages in battles or an abundance of resources. Higher locations can be advantageous, as they can be a hindrance. It all depends on what your goal will be with that space in question. It is worth remembering that the objective is the expansion of the territory, so the more strategic and with resources, the better. The culture of a people. Humankind takes its society's strategy and resource management very seriously. To define a path you can take, we have to choose the culture of our people. This will influence the advantages you will have during the gameplay and how your relationship with other communities around you will be. The game is divided by ages. Each era is a different historical period. In order to evolve from one age to the next, we need to complete the objectives that will earn us the stars of the age. Upon completing era objectives, we are rewarded with glory. Whoever has the most glory wins. As we move from one age to the next, we can define the culture of our people. The options for each period are different and new peoples and civilizations appear. Each culture has a different way of life and speciality. For example, in ancient times, we can choose between the Babylonians, scientists, Egyptians, builders, Assyrians, Hittites, militarists, Harappans, agrarian, Mycenaeans, militarist, Nubians, merchants, Olmecs, aesthetics, Phoenicians, merchants, and the one I chose, the Chode dynasty, aesthetics. The Egyptians are specialists in construction, that is, they will provide you with greater advantages for building your empire, while the Babylonians are scientists, so they will provide you with additional points in science, among other advantages. Each of these cultures offers a culture point that will stay permanently with your empire. Influence. Influence is the way to spread your culture to other peoples. It works as a kind of in-game currency. There is money too. We can use our influence to transform our basic posts into cities and improve them. Influence will also serve for civic upgrades and builds. There are several ways to gain influence, and one of them is territorial expansion. The stability of your civilization and finding wonders of nature also contribute to gaining influence. Religion. For many, religion is the foundation of everything, and in Humankind, it could be too. Religion becomes available after we have 10 population in our city. Initially we can choose between two options of religions, polytheistic and shamanism. Religion makes it possible to create temples and religious districts that reward us with faith. The more faith we have, the more we spread it to neighboring peoples. We can build various buildings that increase our faith, including monuments. Like other topics in the analysis, we have our own screen just for the maintenance of religion and with our own objectives in this regard. To complement, we have the precepts screen. The precepts are unlocked as we gain a certain amount of faith. The precepts grant bonuses in several areas of our management, ranging from more influence to science. Remember, every action can have consequences, so there could be riots among the faithful and people making predictions. You will be responsible for choosing who to listen to or whether to listen to anyone. The choice is yours, but so are the consequences. Science. Science moves the world. To evolve our foundations into great cities and build to thrive, we will use science to research and develop new skills. The game has its own screen for this, and we will use science points, which can be collected with exploration right at the beginning, to improve our techniques. This part works like a skill tree in role-playing games. We have a tree of upgrades that we can evolve and, with that evolution, unlock new skill roots. For example, you decide to upgrade carpentry. This skill will take a number of turns to learn. When you unlock it, you will be able to evolve masonry and fishing, following this way, in practically all skills and evolving according to the respective historical periods. Buildings and monuments. The buildings will be responsible for providing materials, food, and generating jobs for our cities. With a good location already selected, we will be able to evolve our bases for cities and capital. When we already have a capital, we can transform other stations into cities and produce in each one separately. Before evolving into a city, outposts are not self-sustaining, so it won't prosper as much as cities. Building will bring a stronger base to cities, and with the help of science we can build schools, ports, create events for our city such as banquets, take many turns to happen, but increase our food supply. We can build places to store food, building materials, industrial resources, ores, stables, etc. There are several options and each one takes a specific amount of turns to build. Once we have enough influence, we will be able to annex other posts to the capital, increasing influence and our capacity for prosperity. Historical monuments are part of a people and often demonstrate the power of that civilization. Building monuments, cultural wonder, will make you more influential. We can claim only one of each type for our capital. There are several sensational options, ranging from the statue of Zeus to the lighthouse of Alexandria. Building them will grant more influence per turn and more stability. Civics. To shape a society, it is necessary to work on concepts and ideologies so that we can organize it properly. Civics are those concepts that will direct the direction your society will take. Humankind takes this very seriously and brings in a vast array of civics to shape our civilization. As already mentioned, we can choose the type of religion, we can choose the type of law we will have, whether it is normative, laws, or customary, tradition/custom, the type of wisdom, elders or science, military regime and things like that. It's a very positive point for a game of the genre, raising even more the level of strategy that we need to have. An important point in relation to civics is the fact of the dominance present in the region. Like this? Imagine that your territory got small close to the Egyptians, chosen by the AI in the cultural part. They will ask you to change the system you chose in the civic, so if Egyptian dominance is customary law, you can be subpoenaed to change your right to normative to the standard requested by them. If you choose to remain on your system, it will cause a possible loss of stability in your region. Diplomacy. There is no way to lead a nation without having diplomacy, at least, there shouldn't be. We can conquer territories by making war, or we can work together with a great power on our side. Remember that to win, you will need to be the greatest of them. You will be able to negotiate with the powers and prevent wars from starting. Being cautious in your actions, contribute to being a good negotiator, but be sure to intimidate them from time to time, since if you are only the good side, you will not get the opposite side to give in. The diplomacy screen is divided into 4 quadrants: relations, trade, treaties, and crisis. Relationships will guide us throughout the game from the moment they arise. We can be in a friendly or war mood. The way in which we conduct our relationship with a certain group will determine the way in which they will see us. When you are ready, try to propose an alliance and, if accepted, it will allow for a more peaceful relationship. If you receive a negative, you can choose to buy the fight or accept it. If they are already allies and start a surprise war, they will receive the title of traitor, making their relationship with different or allied powers difficult. The trade quadrant is where we will trade products, materials, animals, and it is a way to maintain the balance of provisions in our city. When buying an item from an ally, we can choose the way in which the goods will be delivered to us. We can choose land or sea delivery. Each has its price and delivery guarantee. If you choose sea delivery, it may be more affordable, but it will cause you loss due to theft or the like. The part of the treaties is where we will make the negotiations of advantages with our or possible ally. We can propose, they also, treaties of peace, not causing wars, treaties of commerce, allowing trade of all kinds, banning or allowing only luxury goods, border treaties, allowing access or not, and political treaties, allowing or not allowing not sharing information about our capital and territories. If one of the parties does not accept, there may be a counterproposal or a value for this to be accepted. It requires a lot of patience not to send the ally friend to go for a walk when this occurs. Always be aware of crises. These are comments from the people or the ally in relation to some proposal. Resolving these crises can avoid unnecessary conflicts or end up provoking some, if the power is not pleased. Some decisions by civics can affect crises among a certain group. Independent peoples. It is possible to find independent peoples scattered around the map. These peoples are real historical peoples that cannot be chosen as a cultural option. We can dominate these territories, hire them as mercenaries or include them in our society as members of our army, among other advantages that each action will grant. Military and battle system. There's no way not to think of a likely enemy attack on a growing empire. Certain leaders may envy your achievement and want to bring you down in some way. To reduce the chances or prevent the damage from being too great, we have our army. We can recruit soldiers that evolve over time or hire experienced soldiers to work with you. It is possible to build units in cities, as well as buildings, to increase our army. I've tried to just go for diplomacy, but unfortunately, human beings cry out for war through their ambitions and, eventually, an envy of other success. The battle system follows in turns and is not very complex. Our soldiers stay in their positions on the board and the opponents soon after. Each army has its turn to carry out the attack or change position. It is always important to check the total strength of enemy troops and your own to avoid being slaughtered in battle. It's also possible to fight against animals, but it's always good to avoid if your troop strength is too low. Investing in a good army makes battles easier, but the AI can be challenging at times. Of all the strengths that the game has, the battles are left out. It's not bad and it works well. A pity it is not as varied as other aspects of the game. Problems and bugs. Here is a point that surprised me negatively since the game is not very optimized. It's heavier and requires a higher machine than what the game actually offers, if we think about graphics and content in general. In addition, I witnessed several crashes during gameplay and a very long initial loading screen, sometimes exceeding 1 minute, compared to the usual in newer games. But the good thing about it is that there's only the initial loading screen, so it's not something that bothers you much, in terms of loading. There are times when the text on the screen appears to be programming code and not what it really should be, if it's actually written. Overall, my experience was more pleasant and satisfying, overcoming the problems I saw. Extras, soundtrack, subtitles, accessibility and DLC. As I've mentioned in several reviews, the soundtrack is very important for greater immersion and complementing the atmosphere. The game has a sensational soundtrack and the best quality. It's really impressive how the game includes a trail every step of the way that we've evolved and adapted for each age. The entire game is subtitled in multiple languages, and this is a very rare feat in games like this. It surprised me a lot, since even the tutorial videos are subtitled. So don't worry, if you always need to download community translation to play your game 4X, it won't be necessary here, as the game offers great subtitles. Accessibility mode is increasingly common in the gaming world. Humankind offers some, few, configurations that already do a good job for those who need them. Thinking about a strategy game, I think it's enough to include a lot of people. So far the game has only one DLC, Cultures of Africa, which includes 6 more new cultures and 7 new independent peoples, in addition to more events for the narrative and wonders. It is good for those who want to extend the experience even further and experience new cultures. Conclusion. Humankind brings excellent strategic and resource management experience. It's quite an achievement for the genre and a gift to the fans. It's complex, but it assists the player in many different ways, allowing new players to understand how this universe works and even offers an option for the most staunch, leaving them free of tutorials. It has many exploration options and unique cultures, each with its own advantage or disadvantage over the others. You really are the manager of your own civilization in different ages of humanity. Some problems and bugs are present, but it will hardly be something that will make your gameplay impossible. It is worth remembering that the game has received updates and soon this can be resolved. A great soundtrack that further complements the experience, no doubt. Grade 8/6. For the production of this analysis, the game was played on the computer, from a copy of the game kindly provided by the producer SEGA. Review written by the editor Mr. Superfan Mr., and published on the Revolution Arena website.